Hello, welcome back to the channel. It's me, Emmy the Cat Lady, and we are back with the Wasteland biographies, and it's a big one today. So we're finally going to talk about Robert House, the Mr. House, who is in charge of everything on the Strip in Fallout New Vegas. And I'm talking about him today because we're going to talk about how he's kept himself alive on Saturday as part of the Immortality and Fallout series, so wanted to kind of tie everything in together. So Robert Edwin House was born on the 25th of June 2020, which would make him nearly 5 years old in real life, as things are just now, and he grew up in the Las Vegas area in Nevada. So his parents died when he was 2 in an autogyro accident, and his half-brother Anthony, who we've talked about before on the channel, ended up stealing his inheritance of the family business. But despite all of this, Robert attended the prestigious Commonwealth Institute of Technology, which is the Fallout Universe's MIT, and after graduating he founded Robco Industries, which became an immensely profitable tech company, and his technological genius and business skills led him to become a billionaire by the age of 30, which is quite an achievement, really. And his fortune was invested pretty wisely. He ended up purchasing Repcon Aerospace, the Lucky 38 Hotel and Casino, and the H&H Tools Company, which was owned by his half-brother. Of course, it's very difficult to lose money running a casino, and he also got hold of the company that he should have inherited, so he kind of got his own back in that regard. Like a lot of billionaires and kind of well-known people, Mr. House did prove to be a bit on the eccentric side, and there was a scandal about him dating a starlet, but all he did with her was scan her brain and make her dress up in different outfits, and the story was published in a Mexican tabloid newspaper, which Raul can mention to you at some point if you have him as a companion. As we know, Mr. House spent a lot of time running projections and predictions based on political and socio-economic patterns, and he became certain that nuclear war was coming within 15 years in 2065. And this was confirmed per the TV show in a secret investors meeting with Vault-Tec, where Vault-Tec indicated that they were prepared to drop the bombs themselves if necessary. So Vault-Tec needed the apocalypse to justify their entire business plan, essentially. And I don't believe that this scene confirms that Vault-Tec definitely dropped the bombs. I would interpret it as the if we have to, we will kind of thing. And remember that Vault-Tec do use a lot of Robco technology, such as the Pit Boys. So there's a business relationship between the two companies. So that's kind of what makes the most sense from that scene in the TV show. So after this point, Mr. House began making preparations for the nukes, so he wanted to protect his beloved city of Vegas, keep himself alive, so he built a defence system that would disable the nukes and hopefully destroy any that got through that system. He created a life support system for himself, for his body, that let him stay connected to his networking systems so that he could control everything, and we'll talk more about this aspect of things on Saturday. So these systems needed an operating system upgrade to be fully functional, and this was stored on a specific unique piece of technology in the form of a platinum poker chip, and it was supposed to be delivered either late on the 23rd of October 2077 or on the 24th of October 2077. Obviously that didn't happen due to the slight nuking of the entire country problem. And because the chip wasn't delivered on time, Mr. House wasn't fully able to protect Las Vegas as much as he wanted, but he did manage to prevent the majority of the nukes from detonating and causing damage to the area. However, because of this, he did run into some issues with system crashes, power problems, and that basically put him in a coma for quite a long time until 2138 when he woke up. But because he was still alive and still connected, he began monitoring the Mojave area, making plans and waiting for the right time to reveal himself. So Robco was a pretty powerful corporation with a broad range of products that included robots that were used for security and military applications. So the iBots, the Protectrons, the SentryBots, of course the Securitrons as well. The software like the unified operating system that became the industry standard for all the terminals, and of course the Pip-Boy portable computers that Vault-Tec have made good use of in all their vaults, and even the Stealth Boy, which was reverse engineered from the Chinese stealth technology, and Robco is the company to thank for pretty much all of that. And even, you've probably seen the portraits around of Mr. House posing in front of a large robot, which is either Liberty Prime or an early prototype of the massive anti-communist nuke-tossing robot. So, like most technology companies, Robco had military contracts and contributed to the war effort. And after he woke up from his coma in 2138, he began working away in the background and then revealed his presence in 2274. A bunch of Securitrons rolled out of the Lucky 38, and this happened when he realised that there was NCR scouts sniffing around at Hoover Dam. So House basically enlisted 3 raider tribes that were living in the ruins of Vegas, and they ended up becoming the 3 families, so the chairman, the Omertas, and the White Glove Society. They were remade to be more civilised and less raidery, and banning things like cannibalism, of course, because it's generally frowned upon in most societies. So the Free Economic Zone of New Vegas was established with Robert House as the president and CEO. So when the NCR's forces arrived, House negotiated a treaty called the New Vegas Treaty with them, which was a deal for help with Hoover Dam and permission to use the McCarran Airport, and that protected the strip from any talk of annexation so that House could continue his operations and work away on what he had in mind for the future of humanity. So while all of this was going on, House was paying scavengers to hunt down the platinum chip that was supposed to have been delivered 200 years ago. And it was eventually found in Sunnyvale, and then Courier 6 was hired to bring it to the Lucky 38. And Benny, the leader of the chairman, had other ideas. He intercepted Courier 6, shot them in the head, took the platinum chip and buried them in a shallow grave in Good Springs. You might just recognise this as the inciting incident of a wee game called Fallout New Vegas. So, big connection there, and I think it's very, very interesting. It's a really good way of starting the game, and the fact that there's all this kind of machinations and things happening in the background between them all. And Mr. House didn't like democracy, and he didn't like the pre-war US government believing it to be a failure. So his plan is an autocratic society that focuses on technology and learning from the mistakes of the past. So he wants to move past the corruption and the instability. He's a very confident and strategic man. He's very good at calculating probabilities and making predictions. You see this in the game when he talks about the likelihood of the NCR president being assassinated when he visits the dam. And House intends to use this war between the NCR and the Legion to establish Vegas as his own independent technocracy. He is quite patronising and thinks very little of most people. The way he speaks to you as the courier, even though you're technically working for him. He really doesn't like the NCR very much. He sees them as just a society of customers that he can make money off of, but they're making the same mistakes as the old US government that they are emulating. And he really dislikes the Legion because of their slavery, brutality, and their rejection of technology. The same reason that he's very wary of the Brotherhood of Steel, because of his use of technology, he doesn't think that the Brotherhood of Steel would actually tolerate him in any capacity. So that's why if you do his path, he pushes you to eliminate the Brotherhood of Steel, because he doesn't trust them to leave him alone, which is interesting. And House is a proud visionary, and he believes himself to be a great leader. He wants people to retain their autonomy. He has no desire to control what people do. He just really wants to make enough money to carry out his plans for saving the future of humanity. So if he dies in the game, he's already prepared his own obituary, in which he describes himself as mankind's only hope, and how tragic his loss is because all of his knowledge and brilliance has been stolen from the world. The obituary is unfinished because he doesn't think anyone will see it, and he expresses doubt that many people would even be able to read it should he die. Caesar even comments on how high of an opinion Mr. House has for himself. And he obviously was a genius, and he had these grand plans to save humanity, to do it his way, which is obviously much better than what anyone else could come up with. So killing House is a tragedy that's befallen all of mankind, or is it? Is he truly the best choice for leading New Vegas into the future? That's really up to you as the player to decide if you think he's the way to go, or if someone else is maybe better suited to controlling the Mojave. So it's very, very interesting man is Mr. House. He's based on, similar people in real life that have been like this, and then, they make a lot of money and they become really reclusive and potentially do some kind of unusual things with women that aren't necessarily, bad, but odd potentially, like him taking the starlet and just scanning her brain, that kind of a thing, and the fact that he has this real desire for the snow globes, that he's going to pay 2,000 caps per snow globe if you bring them to add to his collection. Stuff like that. And I think he's a very, very interesting character, and really digging into his plans and his motivations for what he intends, that he wants to have humanity back to, developing technology, improving technology, and leaving this destroyed world behind to go out and colonise other planets and try and do better the next time around, essentially, because he sees that, the democracy and everything was a complete failure because the war with China, and then it ended with the bombs and things, and he knew it was coming, he predicted it, he could see the writing on the wall, and he thinks, well, if society had been different, if the government had been different, that maybe this kind of thing wouldn't have happened. So I think that's very, very interesting to get into, and we're going to talk about his technology on Saturday and talking about what he's actually done to preserve his life and to be able to maintain a connection so that he can actually have control over his system. So in contrast to last week when we were talking about John Caleb Bradburton, who is connected to a machine, but he has no ability to do anything. He has no ability to communicate, to control anything, to change anything about his situation. And obviously Mr. House, he wants to be in control of things, so he would never allow that kind of thing to happen. So his system is designed so that he can still actually function as a person in society while staying alive for as long as he wants to, essentially, until someone comes along and puts an end to that, if they desire to do so. So I think that's really, really interesting. So that's going to be the plan for Saturday. I hope you find this kind of interesting. I think, in terms of his personality and stuff, he makes for an interesting character. And again, all these people that are vying for control of the dam and vying for control of the Mojave, they all have very different plans for how to approach things. So you've got your democracy, which is very much emulating the pre-war US government and the NCR, and the potential there is to make the same mistakes and not learn from history. Then you've got Caesar's Legion, which is a dictatorship where there's slavery, and they're pretty brutal. They crucify people, they execute people, all these kinds of things, and it's kind of a comply or die sort of situation. And then you've got Mr. House, who is, he obviously likes capitalism because he's all about making money, because if he makes money, he can invest that into the technology and developing the technology and the different things that he wants to create in order to save mankind. So, that kind of technocracy where he's an autocrat, but he's not controlling people's lives, he's not dictating, what people are allowed to do, or using people as slaves or anything like that, but he just wants their money. So, having control over the casinos in the Strip and, returning Vegas to the tourist destination that it always has been, so that he can just make more money, which he can then invest into different things. So very, very interesting kind of contrast to both the NCR and the Legion. And I think that makes him a very interesting character. And apparently he is confirmed to return in the TV show in season 2, which I think will be very interesting, because obviously the end of it did hint that we were heading to New Vegas there, and I did like the little bits of kind of insight into, the pre-war stuff. And, it's not a surprise that he was at that meeting with Vault-Tec, because there's obviously a clear business relationship between Robco and Vault-Tec. And I think that it didn't surprise me. Like, I know some people thought it was kind of strange, and that, he knew that Vault-Tec dropped the bombs, and I don't believe that's the case. I think what they were saying there was that they were prepared to do the bombs themselves if it didn't happen already. They were prepared to be the ones to do that, but that doesn't confirm that they definitely did. And I think the thing about it is that they probably never are going to give us a definitive answer of who launched the first nuke, because that takes away a bit of the fun of speculating about it and hinting about it and things. So, when you're creating stories, you do want to keep some secrets from your audience, and let them kind of try and figure it out or use their imagination to a degree. So I don't know that we'll ever actually find out who definitely did it, but my interpretation of that is that Vault-Tec said, well, if nobody else does it, then we'll do it, because we need it to happen to justify charging people all this money for these underground vaults. And people obviously are going to be upset if they pay all this money and then never need them. So, kind of makes sense in that regard. And I think that House had already kind of done his projections and predicted, okay, this is going to happen in the next 15 years. And then attending that meeting and being like, yep, I knew it. So, that's basically confirmed his prediction. It's going to happen. In some fashion, somebody's going to do it in the next few years, and that's obviously exactly what happened. So that is how I interpret that part of the TV show anyway, and I think it's going to be very interesting to see where that goes. So that should wrap things up for today. Obviously Mr. House is a big player in Fallout New Vegas, and a very interesting character, and very interesting choice, I think, for an ending for that story. So let me know what you think, and come back on Saturday where we're going to talk more about his technology and what he could be doing in order to keep his body alive and to keep things running. So we'll get into that on Saturday. Thanks for listening, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.